Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 118, Space and Technology. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel, and Scholar Chang.
Hello, everyone. How you all doing today? How you doing today, Mike? How you doing today, Scholar Chain?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well. Thanks for asking.
All right. So, if you want to follow along, we put the docket in the description beneath the video. And let's get started. All right. So, first article is from arstechnica.com. Pilot project demos credit cards with shifting CVV codes to stop fraud. US-based PNC Bank is in the middle of a pilot project that aims to test out credit cards with constantly changing card verification values to reduce online credit card fraud. The dynamic CVV is displayed on the back of such a card in e-ink and changes according to an algorithm supplied by Visa. Credit card fraud has long been a problem in the U.S. To stop thieves from using reusing credit card numbers in brick and mortar stores, the U.S. has been moving to chip-based credit and debit cards, which create a unique code for each transaction. Although the transaction to chip cards has been less useful than hope, but online credit card fraud is another beast. Once a fraudster has stolen a credit card number, they often they often can use the static number to make online purchases without being thwarted by chip complications. Services like Apple Pay and Google Pay try to combat online card theft by using tokenization to obscure a person's card numbers from theft while online. But if your credit card number has already been stolen, if a cashier if a cashier's chip reader is broken and they direct you to swipe your card or a compromised point of sale terminal, for example, then having then even having a chip based card can't stop bad actors from buying things on your dime. A static CVV number can provide some protection from online fraud, but sometimes CVVs can be stolen in tandem with the credit card number. Worse, researchers have shown that web bots making random guesses on legit websites can often come up with the appropriate CVV and expiration date to pair with the card number. A dynamic CVV should, at least in theory, be far more difficult to guess and use. The idea is the idea of a dynamic CVV isn't new. The cards are being supplied by a company called IDEMIA, which announced its motion code dynamic CVV cards in 2016. Since then, Visa has detailed a specification for dynamic CVV pairing called Dynamic CVV2 (DCVV2), and Visa is also a partner in getting this pilot project off the ground. What do you guys think about this, Lionel?
This is one of those inventions or innovations where it's just right. You know, it's not too much of a pushback. Where people say, "Well, I don't know about that." It's just right.
Hmm.
Obviously, in the article, it said that to combat cyber criminals from stealing your identity, they went with the chips. But the chips only that can be effective to a certain extent. That has a ceiling, and with the changing CVV, it really just works. And the only drawbacks to it that the article stated again is how long do you wait before the CVV changes because you're online, you're trying to make a purchase, and you may take longer than usual, depending on what you're doing at the time to press the purchase button and the CVV change, and now you have to, depending on the site, you have to re-put all the information in, credit card information again. It's only I see that as a minor setback, not a major setback, in the grand scheme of what it's supposed to do. And I would say, that's just minor. But this is one of them things where innovations where it's just right.
Scholar Chang.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Hello?
We can.
Okay, cool. So here's how I see it, right? So the original invention of CVV, basically, like I say, as we all know, is to protect against the fraud. But what I don't understand is that if they're gonna accept, if they're gonna have those built-in CVV code to protect against the physical defrauding and stuff, they could also modify the reading of the card in such a way that they can have an online CVV code also. So I'm not sure when in that article when they mentioned about the changing CVV code, are they talk about building another quote unquote CVV code, which is probably not exactly going to be a CVV code, but it's going to be more compatible with the online platform. So I think that it's going to be technologically that's going to be pretty challenging, because the fact that usually the best mechanism against frauding is the physical modification part. As far as the software reading part, that can be very hard. So I think that's where the whole encrypted what's the word I'm looking for? Encrypted readings comes in, which the article didn't really mention too much about encrypting. I'm not sure if that's the technology they were using or not. Cryptography. I'm sorry, cryptography. So that's what I'm.
Well, that's what your CVV code would do. So if the code is dynamic, then what happens there is that when the transaction takes place, the dynamic CVV is basically adding a cryptographic stamp onto each transaction. The problem with the previous, or what you have currently with a static code, is that every transaction is the same exact CVV. So therefore, it wouldn't take much for a powerful computer. Let's say you have dual processor, NVIDIA graphics cards, 2, 3, 4 graphics cards. A system like that can crack that code really easily. So if it's static. So if it's dynamic, then what happens is the amount of effort and time that it takes for a brute force attack to happen to crack that code, the code is no longer of value. It's out of date for the transaction. So the next transaction they would have to figure it out because it's 3 digits. By the time they figure it out, the dynamic CVV or the DCVV already changed.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So you mean it functions like a genetic algorithm where it evolves, right? It evolves in response to the reading.
Right. The transaction is never the same. So you could have 20 different transactions, have 20 different CVVs, even though the CVVs are already authenticated by the network itself. This is actually a pretty simple way of doing it, but it sounds expensive because you're using E-ink. And how is the code changing, right? You only have 3 digits, which goes up to 9999.
Okay, now my question is this. I know at the end of the article it said to produce one of these cards is like $15 compared to $2 to $6 for the standard card that we use now. Now, is the cost offset by having to pay or having to swallow purchases made off people's accounts that was not.
It will be paid for by the user. They're gonna bill you with a security maintenance charge every month.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Look,
okay. Yeah, I can see that.
That's what I'm trying to figure. That's what I'm saying. They're gonna pass the cost again to the consumers, right? All these credit card fraud. the fact that credit card fraud occurred is precisely because of the lack of the security mechanism building into those cards, which are created by the credit card company. If you're gonna sell us all these products and stuff, in other words, should consumers be responsible for the quality of the product, right? Because essentially that's what it boils down to, right? Is that should the consumer be responsible for the less stronger anti-theft mechanism that was built into the existing car? So the fact.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. You can go.
To me, it's just business in there. Oh, God, yeah. Well, I'll say this. To me, it's just business in my eye. So they're saying, hey, we'll do this, but you got to pay for it. And this particular in this particular innovation, I wouldn't mind paying for it to know that if I have a stronger possibility of having my identity safe, I wouldn't mind paying a one-time fee.
All right. All right. Next article is from darkreading.com. Toxic data: how deep fakes threaten cybersecurity. The joining of deep learning and fake news makes it impossible to create audio and video of real people saying words they never spoke of or things they never did. Quote: fake news is one of the most widely used phrases of our times. Never has there been such focus on the importance of being able to trust and validate the authenticity of shared information. But its lesser understood counterpart, deepfake, poses a much more insidious threat to the cybersecurity landscape, far more dangerous than a simple hack or data breach. Deepfake activity was mostly limited to the artificial intelligence research community until late 2017, when a Reddit user who went by Deepfakes, a portmanteau of deep learning and fake, started posting digitally altered pornographic videos. This machine learning technique makes it impossible to create audio and video of real people saying, makes it possible to create audio and video of real people saying and doing things they never said or did. But BuzzFeed brought more visibility to deepfakes and the ability to digitally manipulate content when it created a video that supposedly showed President Barack Obama mocking Donald Trump. In reality, deepfake technology has been used to superimpose President Obama's face onto footage of Jordan Peele, the Hollywood filmmaker. This is just one example of new wave of attacks that are growing quickly. They have the potential to cause significant harm to society overall and to organizations within the private and public sectors because they are hard to detect and equally hard to disprove. What do you guys think about this?
Go ahead, Mr. Leon. I'll come after you.
I think Lionel stepped away, so
okay. Okay. Well, first off, the whole concept of the fake news emerged during the Trump campaign. That's when it's become popularized, right? Which is pointing at the mainstream media. So when I look at this article, I see the slight slant in the fact that they're only pointing out how the the right-leaning users or the right-leaning media platform, how that especially those the Reddit profile, how there was creating quote unquote fake news content to simulate how the Barack Obama's mocking of President Trump. But yet the article didn't mention about the fake news that was emerging from the left-leaning platform media. So when we talk about the fake news, we have to be very objective in the fact that when we talk about fake news, when we talk about fake news from both sides, then the fact that also when we talk about using the word fake news, are we talking about objectively that the news that was actually that was being manipulated by the mainstream media, or we talk about just all this vast swath of untested, unverified and unscrutinized media platforms, all throughout e-media, all throughout internet, right? Or you think about all these your blogs, like for example, Mother Jones, or Deep Red States, or Blue States, Young Democrats, or Young Republican, all these platforms. How we gonna? That's what I'm saying. We have to be very careful in terms of how we're gonna, what kind of criteria to use to evaluate that. Also, I just want to mention that in terms of that machine, that deep learning machines that the mimicking, again, that could be employed by both sides, because you got computer genius from either the left or the right. So it's just a matter of how the individuals going to be utilizing.
Well, a lot of this stuff is available on the dark web, so you can buy a platform for about $20 at best, and you can weaponize it. So it's another tool in the arsenal of smearing individuals. I mean, they use it against President Obama because that was a high value target. But what happens when you're a decent law abiding citizen and somebody takes your face and then implants a different voice to it, saying something that you didn't say? Or what happens when you get a phone call from this artificial intelligence that's asking you, it picks up the phone, you pick up the phone and you say hello, and the other person says, on the other part of the line, it says hello, and you say, who am I speaking to? Oh, well, this is Scholar Chang. And then there's a conversation that's starting because the artificial intelligence is engaging you, because it's machine learning. So it's learning the conversation that you're engaging with the AI itself, which creates a vulnerability between you, the AI, and PII, which is personally identifiable information. Now you start giving off information, or now it starts to track where you are GPS wise, IP wise. Now it's basically ability to compromise a person through social engineering.
Is Mr. Lionel still there?
I think Lionel stepped away.
Okay. So yeah, I see exactly where you're coming from. It could easily be utilized by any insidious governmental agency or government or those who knows, any of those powerful entities that could that used to track the individual's movement. But what I think in this context, they specifically pointing out on the political. I think more on the political aspects is, because another thing, right? We talk about the specific deep learning. Deep learning, in words, is really the whole concept of deep learning is really based on, right? If I'm mistaken, mathematics speaking, it's based on statistics. So I think that the manipulation of statistics, not your conventional survey statistics. I'm talking about this. I think the type of statistic they were using for machine learning is the non-Bayesian. Non-probable. I forgot all this whole. I forgot the name of the specific type of statistics that's being used for deep learning. The Bayesian, is a Bayesian or non-Bayesian statistics. So just like they can manipulate, the Bayesian statistics, in your conventional statistic surveys or whatever, they can also manipulate the non-Bayesian statistics and then alter that algorithm in such a way that alter the mathematical aspects of the learning, the machine learning, and then therefore alter the whole deep fake algorithm. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is this an algorithm, or is this from the article? It seems like you were just mentioned it was a user who actually purchased. This is some kind of algorithm. You mentioned about the dark web, and also speaking of dark web, though, on the other hand, how many individuals can actually get a hold of dark web? Because in order to use the dark web, you also have to use You cannot just use the conventional currency to do conduct transaction in the dark web, right? I think you got to use the cryptocurrency in order to perform transaction in the dark webs. And the fact that so if we delve into dark web, that'll be a whole another can of worms, because I think in this platform, I think that the Reddit user, I already doubt that the Reddit user, I mean, not Reddit user, I already doubt that any individual who are trying to perform the fake news content, especially those some of those individuals who just used to slander another individual's reputation. I don't think they're going to go to all trouble to go into delve into deep webs and then perform all these almost non-conventional transactions in order to purchase this. I don't know, just my.
Yeah, never underestimate what a threat actor will do. That's the first thing in security that you have to understand. If you want to stop bad guys, and you have to think like a bad guy too.
Yeah. I was about to say, yeah. So we need to take the whole fake news content, but only take them out beyond just politics. We need to apply it to, like, say, personal security too. Because we mentioned about identity theft. This could be another form of identity theft too. Because you mentioned how if they can mimic in the news, they can mimic in the individual's images and stuff. God knows what kind of stuff they can produce. They can produce a listed personal ID, right? ID card or a credit card with all this information. I mean, they already have this technology, but now this type of tools just going to give them additional weapons in their arsenal. So I think I will really be hoping that there will be some form of anti deep fake measure that be taken. I guess it will be good. One anti deep fake measure is to disrupt. I guess to disrupt the learning process itself. But I don't know the whole. I need to delve deeper into the science behind it.
All right, let's move on to the next article. All right, this one is from CGTN. Field of mirrors in Gobi Desert helps generate power. I thought this was a very interesting video demonstrating what the Chinese are capable of doing in the Gobi Desert. So these CSPs, which is concentrated solar panels, point to a large tower that absorbs all this energy from the mirrors, the solar mirrors on the ground, and they tilt up to create lots of power, which are measured in megawatts. So the tower right now is capable of producing a little over 100 megawatts for right now, depending on the season. And what happens is the energy that is created from the mirrors pointed at the solar tower itself goes down into the ground where it is molten salt to store the energy that is then redistributed into the cities nearby. Scholar Chang, you're our Chinese SME subject matter expert. You have anything?
I was in the complete answer. Okay, first off, it's nothing new, right? China has been if I'm not mistaken, I think I shared a link with you guys, that China is the leading producer and the participants of the solar panel. So it's just a logical transition that this is just going to be a logical transition that they're going to use. Speaking of Gobi Desert, speaking of a rejuvenation of the Gobi Desert, well, no, not rejuvenation, reclamation of the deserts for human habitation. Israel has been doing it for a while, right? So I'll be very interested to find out if there will be some sort of exchange of technology between Israel and China in this aspect, right? Also, on top of that, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I don't understand what exactly is the American government thinking. The whole world is moving rapidly toward renewable energy. All these other alternative energy sources. But yeah, we just have this deep, this entrenched, powerful interest that just pose any form of technological advancement. You remember that whole disaster with what's the company under Obama? You remember that company?
So,
Oh my.
Solar City, not
Yeah,
Solar,
yeah.
Solandra.
Solandra, yeah. Can you imagine if so that's what I'm saying is on one hand, those renewable interests in those what I found saddening is the fact those individuals who are involved in renewable energy renewable energy developments are only considered to exploit the consumer and defraud the public. On the other hand, you also got individuals, those entrenched fossilized, literally too, fossilized individuals who so bent on who so bent on those of you being the main energy sources that they will post any form of development in this aspect. So like I said, not just China right now. You also have if I'm not mistaken, Brazil is also embarking a similar venture. I think I need to figure out where to get the article. Next time I find the article, I'll post the link. I'll share the link too. Brazil is also undergoing similar transaction too. You were using, I think instead of using solar power, I think they were using wind. Was it wind power, or maybe it's also solar too? So what's my point? What's the moral story? The moral story is that again, I'm not surprised that China is trying to reclaim Gobi Desert. You understand. Population. Remember, no matter how large, no matter how the population control may be, China's still the what? 1/5 of the world's population, right? So, in order to feed that be a large population, and while domesticate population, because remember, China right now, like I say, it could, if not managed properly, it could be a ticking time bomb, right? We're talking about 1.6 billion people still. Right? If you don't feed those individuals, you think those apocalyptic scenario in America is bad? Imagine a apocalyptic scenario of 8 times America's population, right? Or 7 times American population. That's how large Chinese population is. So that's why Chinese government, right, is engaging all these ambitious infrastructure development, all this renewable source development. It's because it's really as a form of pacification, really. It's a form of pacification. It's to pacify the discontent. Because otherwise, if the relatively manageable lifestyle is disappear, if the food dwindling and stuff, or food resource dwindling and stuff, the government's be at the mercy of the people. And that has been going on for the past thousands of years. All the dynasty transition. So that's why the Communist Party, Chinese CCP, is so bent, focused on developing all these technologies, because they need to figure out ways, like I said, to feed its population. And also on top of that, another thing I want to add, I'm pretty sure you guys already know, is like I'm just speaking at that horse here. Being an authoritarian country, they just can get things done a lot quicker. Now, the hope is the quality of those mirrors, right? Those solar panel mirror could be as up to par also. So that's the goal. That's the hope, right? Because a lot of time, Chinese build all these buildings, but a lot of time qualities are being compromised for the sake of speed. So I just hope this type of solar panel they build would be as robust and sturdy as what they claim to be.
Yeah, and the reason why you see these the panels are tilted upward is because depending on the time of the day, when the sun is coming and how much wind is coming, it actually adjusts automatically to the conditions. So in order to get the most amount of power up, obviously the ones that are closest to the center on the ground are not going to be able to push power up, or reflect light up to create power. So you see them starting to tilt backwards and start to tilt upwards based on where the sun's geometry is. What else can I say about this? It has enough storage to store energy for I think something like a month or something like that, something to that effect. I believe it's like a month, 30 days, something to that effect, which is a long time to store energy. But 100 megawatts, I think the average home uses something like maybe 1,000 kilowatts, give or take. with all the your green energy products inside your house. I think it's like 1,000 kilowatts a month. If you take that into consideration, then this thing can power up something like maybe 25 to 30,000 houses.
Well, also I want to add, in terms of the energy consumption, that's you mentioned the number you gave. I think you mentioned about the American, right? We talk about American energy consumption. Well, it may not be applicable in terms of China, because remember, energy consumption in China, especially because given the wealth gap, the extreme wealth gap. I really doubt those individuals near the Gobi, because Gobi Desert is all the way in western China, which is far, which is, I mean, still undergo development, it's undergo the modernization aspect, but it's still a large sector of population who's in poverty. And we all know they're not going to consume as much energy. But I think that eventually, given the fact that when China's middle class emergence continue to occur, right, with the emergence of Chinese middle class, when it's continue to grow, eventually when the consumption catch up to the Western energy consumption pattern, by then the solar panel will be mature enough to meet the needs. But for now, like I say, regardless what type of energy they're going to generate, the amount of energy they generate, they're going to meet the demands, because the fact that, like I say, majority of those Western Chinese population, a lot of them are still too, like I say, too I won't say poor, but they just won't consume as much energy. So you mentioned about powering hundreds of homes. Oh, I would say larger than that. Probably a lot.
It's about 25 to 30,000. This.
Yeah.
This. I think Jack might be. Well, that's Lionel. Lionel making a lot of noise in the background. Yeah, I think that's you. So what I was trying to say was that this project is actually on the small side. Now, I believe in Dubai they have a similar project that produces way more energy, because they have a lot more desert to deal with, or to utilize in terms of where the mirrors can be placed. So when you think about this project, this is the first project that China has done on this level, and they said they got a lot of experience by watching the Americans. Because I believe there's one in Nevada, or maybe it might be in Utah, one of those West Coast states. It's actually out there. They've actually demonstrated that sort of capability. So China has been watching, according to the video, China has been watching the Americans and how they done it, and then they went back and replicated some of the implementations. What's going on, Jack?
Not much, brothers. Yeah, that article is really remarkable, man. Seeing that this amount of mirrors, used, right, and then I did some more research on the technology as far as using the salt to convert the energy, right. I didn't think that was. I really knew too much about the salt and the implements of salt, right? How long that's been in they've been using that type of technology as far as the salt to convert the energy.
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
What's the question again?
Well, I'm trying to figure out like how long because this is the first time I heard of the use of salt, right? To pretty much how it works is it goes from the energy goes to an inverter, it heats up the salt. The salt also, even the salt turns turbines, and the turbines converts to energy. But this is the first time I ever heard about the use of salt, right? To do that. So how long have they been using salt for, as far as in regards to as far as energy use? How long have they been doing that for?
Probably about 20 years now, if not longer. It's molten salt. It's molten salt. So it's not like the salt that you buy at the store with the little lady with the umbrella on on the cover. This sort of salt is Jack, can you mute yourself, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, this sort of salt is being repurposed for energy absorption. So I would like to see something like this probably done in Africa because Africa has a lot of desert and it has a lot of it has a lot of real estate to actually utilize. So you can do something like this. Be interesting to see what happens in the Sahara. I know you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I saw the video and they were really breaking down what they do. Like you said, you did a good job breaking it down. But in the video, the guy said, well, we can't actually walk to one end. We have to get into a truck and drive to one end. But then they panned away, and you saw another in the distance, another tower in the distance. They are taking out a big chunk of a good sized chunk of a part of the desert and building a multiple of those because the one that they were on itself was large. It, like the guy said, it looks like a field of a forest of solar panels, and that wasn't the only one. So that's how they're able to power up 25 to 30,000 houses. And also, he mentioned how when the sun goes down, people tend to lose energy. But with the system that they have, they are alleviating that problem. The power supply is staying constant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm noticing this big move from fossil fuels to clean energy. It's like I'm noticing this past maybe 5 to 10 years, it's been more of a stronger effort just to kind of get away from that. Um, I know it's going to hurt the fossil fuel market, but I think there's nothing wrong with clean energy, right? Especially if you live in just like I'm traveling to different cities. I see these wind turbines. They're mostly predominantly these small towns or like kind of like rural areas. I'm noticing more of these wind turbines. But something needs to be done about as far as pollution in these major cities, especially in California, certain things like that. So I think this clean energy will definitely, you know, cut down, especially in pollution. So um,
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing.
yeah. So China actually is leading the way on the Paris Climate Agreement that they had earlier this year, and Trump, for better or worse, he pulled out of the agreement because he doesn't want to comply with it because he's he has people he has to answer to, and they don't want to do that. Some of these coal power plants and things like that are putting out smog and things like that. They don't want to close their business down due to some sort of international agreement that hurts their business. So from an energy perspective, from a technology perspective, China is leading the way on this. And China has, like Scholar Chang said, they're an authoritarian country, so there's less bureaucracy that they have to deal with. They can just go ahead and go do what they want as long as they can fit it within their cost structure. If it's feasible, then they go ahead and do it. If it's not feasible, then they just say no, right? But that allows them to innovate in areas where the United States cannot do. The United States has 8,000 bridges that it's considered to be condemned or will be condemned at some point, and they can't even fix those. Where meanwhile, China is throwing up bridges left and right, 26-mile bridges and infrastructure that makes the United States gas because they
You,
keep compete.
that's why I also want to add, right?
Yes, sir.
You know what I found the biggest irony
Hmm.
is that one of the leading arguments, right, against Paris Agreement is that, oh, look at all these developing countries like China, Russia. India, they don't comply with the carbon footprint reduction. Why should we? Well, guess what? Now China's leading that. I mean, what's the excuse now, right? So I think it boils down, like you mentioned before, it's all beholden to the special interests. What I found again, when Trump came to the office, it was under the banner of opposing special interests, but now he's part of the special interest. So again, I'm going to mention the infrastructure, the Chinese infrastructure part. I'm going to wait until when we talk about the bridges and stuff, because I have a lot of things I want to mention about that. Because like I said, it's just shameful how the United States really, our national priority is really fucked up. We spend all this money, right? How quote unquote spreading democracy all around the world, right? Assisting all these countries around the world. Meanwhile, our Amtrak system is over 100 years old, literally. I mean, look at technology. Look at the damn Amtrak, the train. We're still using the damn 1960s. Well, maybe even worse than that. Maybe we're talking about 1930s technology. What happened to all these technology upgrades, right? Okay, so I think was Supreme or somebody posted a link about Elon Musk. Again, Elon Musk is only one individual versus what the entire government, right? In China, the entire government, when they actually spend devoting resource after resource to build up the public infrastructure, right? And meanwhile, the United States just let this infrastructure crumbling. Why? Because they don't want the quote unquote government getting involved, which is fine. You don't want the government getting involved, but yeah, at the same time, they keep on taxing the taxpayer. So where does all this money go? Right? Those money not being spent on the. They keep raising taxes every year in different states. I'm from. I used to live. I'm from New Jersey too. So in Connecticut, Northeast, the New York, all these. They keep raising all these taxes to build highways. To build bridges. But yeah, each year the highway and bridges keep getting worse and worse. You got pothole everywhere in the winter. In the first world country, supposed to be the most powerful nation, but yeah, we can't even afford to build a damn bullet train, and we have to ask some billionaire to do that. Yeah. It just yeah. I'll leave that until later.
Yeah. Infrastructure wise. Amtrak is way behind in comparison to China's new bullet train that does 240 miles an hour. I think the newest one that they're testing does 300 miles an hour, faster than Japan's bullet train. So it's one of those things where the United States wants to be a superpower, but it lacks in the areas necessary to make it a superpower. So its superpower capability is military projection, not exactly infrastructure development and technological development. If you look at China is the world leader right now in artificial intelligence, whereas the United States is behind. But in China, they don't have student loan debt in the same way that Americans have student loan debt. So therefore, their ability to innovate is a lot easier than it is in America. And you have your figures, your political figures and lobbyists who don't seem to take that into consideration or just don't care for the most part. So therefore, you couldn't create something like this in urban areas practically because the rest of the infrastructure is already crumbling. Look at the bridges in Minnesota and I think it was in Washington that collapsed. You had in Massachusetts, in Boston, you had a ceiling tile from a tunnel fall on top of somebody's car and squash them like a pancake. That happened about 10 years ago. But that's the the evidence of your failings. All right, let me move on to the next article. All right, this one's from arstechnica.com. Using molten salt to store electricity isn't just for solar thermal plants. We just read something like this, or just watched a video on this, right? Startup follows a number of innovative ideas to make renewable energy more flexible. An energy startup that found its footing at Alphabet's X Moonshot division announced last week that it will receive $26 million in funding from a group of investors led by Breakthrough Energy Ventures, a fund that counts Jeff Bezos and Michael Bloomberg as investors and whose chairman is Bill Gates. The startup, called Malta, uses separate vats of molten salt and antifreeze like liquid to store electricity as thermal energy and dispatch it to the grid when it's needed. Malta's system stores electricity by taking that electricity using a heat pump to convert the electricity to heat and storing that heat in molten salt. Then the electricity is needed again. When electricity is needed again, the system reunites the molten salt with cold fluid using a heat engine to reconvert the thermal energy to electricity, which can be sent back to the grid. The concept is outlined in July 2017 paper in the Journal of Renewables and Sustainable Energy, which states that round trip efficiency is found to be competitive with that of pumped hydroelectric storage. Oh, pumped hydroelectric storage is one of the oldest forms of electricity storage. Using electricity when it's cheap and plentiful to pump water up a hill, and then releasing the water through the hydroelectric turbines when electricity is expensive and scarce. In fact, lots of parallels can be drawn between Malta systems and other forms of energy storage. A liquid air energy storage system in UK uses temperature differentials, like Malta does, to expand condensed air and put more electricity back on the grid when it's needed. Solar thermal systems direct concentrated sunlight to a central tower to heat molten salt, which can store that heat for a long time before it's used. This allows solar thermal systems to keep sending energy to the grid as well after the sun goes down. Malta's business pitch is that its thermal pump storage system can be located anywhere, unlike hydroelectric pump storage, which requires elevation changes, or compressed air energy storage, which has primarily deployed near natural underground caverns. It can be expanded easily, and unlike chemical batteries, such a system is made of common and cheap industrial materials that have 20-year lifespans. This is just a diagram of the molten energy storage. So first it collects the energy, then it converts it, then it stores it, then it reconverts it, and then it redistributes it or distributes it. Gentlemen, have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah. When I saw the diagram, it was I understood it. It's pretty cool what they're doing. Like the article said, they are lengthening the lifespan of these green energies, such in this case, power, solar power, and wind energy, because these currently right now, or up to this point, these two energies have had a ceiling above them on the what they can do. So you see new technology coming out that can lengthen what they do, strengthen what they do, and per that diagram, what they're using molten salt to store this energy. And once they store it, the way they store it and the way they reconvert it to put it back on the grid, I mean, I am impressed. So this is a good thing. It can only go. It can only be better than this. This is a good step. This is a step in the right direction. I'm interested to see how else they'll be able to innovate and have these renewable energies be the main uh, way humans create energy. But this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with Lionel. It is a step in the right direction, um, especially in countries such as like Haiti, right? The power usually stay on. It comes on around sundown, right? And the power might stay on for about maybe an hour or two, and that's just the electricity they'll get for the day. So I think something implemented in countries such as Haiti or other countries who's experiencing the same situation or so same problem, can really benefit from this. Now, my other point to that is um, when it comes to monetizing it, right? I think this is a simple way for somebody to kind of monopolize that part of the game, as far as in a certain area of a country. If they're able to add more power to the infrastructure, they can find ways to, because it is clean energy, right? So they can find ways to kind of charge those who can afford it um, more time, for with the power, because when you come to a country such as Haiti, you got to use generators, you got to get gas. You're kind of spending more money in the long run. But if you're able to give this clean type of energy and kind of monetize it to a point that it's affordable to the common people, this potentially could be a game changer. If used right. So uh, that's just my thoughts on it.
Scholar Chang.
I just want to add that this will be very helpful to the countries that host any of those volcano areas, because they have a large amount of those molten they can tap into. So this I also want to add that what I found very intriguing about technology is the fact that you know that usually we think about energy resource, or we think about in the terms of fluid, right? You think about gas, you think about winds, even because winds and stuff. You think about those are more fluid type of energies. Now they're actually gonna tap into and the water, of course, the water too. Forget about water, the hydraulic stuff. So the fact that they're gonna use salts, that's a very intriguing technology.
So pretty much the molten salt it pretty much comes from the volcanoes, or where is it primarily mined from? Like where's the main export of this molten salt? Like where is it usually found at?
I know they have salt mines, but I don't know in particular off the top of my head where they are. I know it seems to be popular. I think like in South Africa, if I remember correctly, and I think maybe like in places like Argentina, if I remember correctly. Um, I know that we covered an article some time ago, not some time ago, but maybe early in the month, um, where it described these Volvo trucks were actually moving salt, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that though.
Yeah, that was a good article. Just kind of like explaining, kind of giving people more information on the whole process.
Hmm.
Um, I do think this is a great concept and can be utilized in countries that need it the most. It doesn't seem like it's more of a cheap and efficient and clean type of technology. So I think it's a good thing.
I also want to add though one more thing that
Yes, sir.
I think there's also the exploration of the molten salt. I think one of the drawback is that in its pure form, right? Like I say, molten salt itself, uh, they do not conduct. They're not conductive. So I think what they do is that they also have to dissolve it in liquid. So again, at the end of the day, they still have to go through the steps of uh, transform that transparent into a fluid form in order for the energy to be tapped
They,
into.
they
So
use antifreeze
yeah,
liquid. So
yes, we're
the
so
ant-
good. Yes, I'm saying. Go ahead.
yeah, so they figured out how to use antifreeze liquid to transfer it.
Yeah, that's my point. Is that we still don't have the technology to directly without going to the intermediate. Because remember, the more intermediate steps you impose, the more energy is going to be, the more less energy efficient it's going to be, because you have all this thermal energy being lost, right? Because you guys know no, unless you have the perfect unless you perform the chemical conversion in a completely isolated environment, you always have energy loss, and those energy loss itself basically dictates how energy efficient the process is. So the more intermediate steps you have, the more less energy efficient it's going to be. So I just hopefully eventually they'll develop technology where they can directly, right, directly tap into the conductivity of the molten salts without going through the the intermediate conversion. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, let me get to this article real quick. This article is from CoinIntelGraph.com. IBM Research teams up with agritech firm to boost African agribusiness with blockchain. IBM Research has teamed up with United States-based agriculture tech firm Hello Tractor to boost the African agriculture industry with blockchain. The partnership was described in a December 11th blog post on IBM's official website. According to the post, the IBM Research division in Kenya is working with Hello Tractor's developers in order to apply various tools and technologies, including blockchain, to the Hello Tractor mobile platform that enables farmers to access tractor services on demand. Specifically, IBM Research scientists will incorporate blockchain and the Internet of Things (IoT) technologies to the Hello Tractor Tools platform. IBM Research also intends to integrate the platform with its own cloud solution, IBM Cloud, as well as Watson Decision Platform for Agriculture, a jointly developed agribusiness tool based on artificial intelligence. The new jointly developed platform will reportedly represent an quote agriculture digital wallet featuring a blockchain-based AI platform that will provide a high level of transparency of instantly shared data between all parties involved in a certain agribusiness value chain. In particular, the pilot is expected to address to a wide range of processes in the agriculture industry, such as crop yield prediction by farmers, fleet utilization management, and predictive maintenance, and compilation of credit portfolio for farmers and tractor owners by banks, as well as investments and regulation processes by governments. According to IBM, less than 20% of the crops are managed by tractors and other machinery in sub-Saharan Africa to date, while food demand is constantly increasing due to population growth, averaging 11 million per year. Moreover, around 50% of farmers face significant harvest losses each year, which is caused by poor planting practices. So, what do you guys think about this?
All right. This is a good idea, especially the last census said 50% of the farmers lose out on crops every year because of poor planting. This can only increase the productivity. This can only increase the efficiency. That you in the article you read that it mentioned supply chain, meaning they can use IoT devices to say, hey, it's time to bring out organic, like organic pesticide control, or say, hey, according to history, around this time in Africa, you have harmattan, which is the dry season. This can really help around that time. Crops will die. Now you have a way to combat that, or at least have a fighting chance. This has a lot of good. The application has a lot of good to it.
Jack Charles?
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely will create more efficiencies. Just looking at the statistics, it was explaining with 50% of farmers experience loss, right? And then with the exponentially growth of Africa, right? It makes you think, people need food. So this actually is more of a need, and I think this is going to help those countries that are suffering major losses when it comes to agriculture. Now, what my question to Lionel is when it says digital wallet, I know it's going to add to transparency, but can you explain some more on what the digital wallet is when it comes to blockchain?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Broke out. Did you just ask me a question? My phone broke out a bit.
Yeah, I was asking. It said that it has a digital. When it comes, it's going to create more transparency using a digital wallet that's blockchain based. Can you kind of give me an explanation what the digital wallet has to do with the blockchain base?
Well, I
Uh,
don't think a wallet in terms of, hey, this is where you store your coins or credentials. I don't think they're talking about it in that form. I'm trying to go to article. Um, after they said that in an article, it says, I'm trying to go to it at the same time. My apologies. It really said what it meant. Where is it in the okay? The new jointly developed platform will reportedly represent an agricultural digital wallet featuring a blockchain-based AI platform that will provide a high level of transparency of instantly shared data between all parties involved in a certain agribusiness value chain. Meaning, what it's more like a data pool or a data lake in which you can go to this with like a shared, let's say a wallet in this in this example, and get data in terms of, hey, what data you may need. I think that's what they are saying, not in terms of, hey, this is why I keep my coins.
Yeah, I just want to add also that's the biggest conception a lot of people have. They always which I understand, with the whole doing the whole the whole popularity of blockchain last, no cryptocurrency last year. People always constantly hear the word blockchain, cryptocurrency, blockchain, cryptocurrency, blockchain, cryptocurrency, blockchain, so forth, so forth. They totally forget the fact that blockchain, the cryptocurrency, they are also two separate existence, two separate technology. Also, they just happen to come together, and well, I should say, cryptocurrency cannot exist without blockchain, but blockchain can exist without cryptocurrency. Blockchain. I think it was episode 3 episodes ago, 4 episodes ago. I remember I think I told you, share with you guys how I attended this a seminar or workshop on the blockchain application and logistics and the supply chain. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a classical example of how the blockchain can be applied to logistics. Because remember, at the end of the day, what's blockchain? Really, blockchain is just what? A ledger, right?
Yes.
A decentralized digital ledger distributive systems, right? So, and then if that was a ledger, that means that anytime we have a shipment process, anytime we have fleet management, I think that article mentioned that fleet management, which is a very, again, another very, very prominent example. That's why the trucking companies, all these trucking companies get on the blockchain platform, is because the fact that not only ensures facilitated transactions in the management, monitoring and so forth, it also help, like I said, add the layer of protection, security protection and so forth. So I think what they're trying to do in this case, IBM, is that they want to link up, because remember, agricultural product has to be distributed somehow, right? So that's why that's why the African agriculture products, if they can facilitate the distribution of African cultural product, we know where this rich lands, resource, and so forth. Oh, this can be a magnificent marriage between, like I say, between the technology and the land. Also, I want to add that again, that's not just another examples of how Africans could become, like I say, like the 21st century or 22nd century. Like I say, it's going to be it's either both the Asian and the African century, because, like I say, because so much resource in Africa right now. That's why all these major companies and the countries are trying to set up their shops in Africa right now. So IBM, again, just one of the many is of trend follower that trying to set up his own shop in Africa. Also, another thing I want to add in terms of the farmers' access to blockchains, I think there's going to be some sort of technical transfer delay too, because remember they still have to train those farmers to be familiarized with the technology. Because I'm pretty sure that a lot of these farmers, I don't think before they even give them the blockchain technology, they have to learn how to use the tractor trailer, right? So they have to transition into tractor trailer services first under a most efficient tractor trailer fleet management system before they can transition that into a blockchain based management system. So it's a two-step process. And one last thing they mentioned about Internet of Things, that's just another one of the emerging technology, right? They mentioned that builds up a connection. Because remember, both blockchain and the Internet of Things is based on what? Connections. Like I said, being connection, whether it be connection between the nodes in the case of the blockchain. No, not nodes. I'm sorry, between the case of blocks in the blockchains, or in the case of between physical devices in the Internet of Things. So that's just another emerging technology that builds on connection. That's why the word connect. That's why the keyword connection is going to be the underlying keywords for a lot of this emerging technology. Is a lot of based on connection. I want to say.
Okay. Let me get my 2 cents before we move on to the next one. They have to micromanage African agriculture because there's so much they're losing in terms of produce because there's a lack of rain and the drought seasons. Just inefficient ways of managing crops because they don't have enough farmers. You see that happening right now, even with the farmers in South Africa. They want to get rid of the colonizers off the land, and then they have no Africans to actually manage it. No melanated Africans to actually manage it. So what happens is the crops end up going bad, and then you have a bad crop season. Now you lost, billions or millions of dollars over the long term. You can't feed all these people. Lino, you have something you want to say?
No.
Okay. And I think that's where the technology is coming in. It's actually micromanaging a lot of this stuff that typically was done on paper and pad for the most part. And once it's digitized, once it goes to the digital transformation, I don't think you have to train any farmers to do anything because the data will actually be the data match with Watson, which is the artificial intelligence platform, would actually spit all that data out to them on the screen, and that's all they're going to see. They won't have to actually train them on blockchain or anything like that.
Yeah, but the problem is that I'm not sure. I think I don't know if the article mentioned it now. I think a lot of these farmers, they still have to learn how to use, because no matter what, they're still going to be operating tractor trailer, right? Unless, of course, eventually we get to the point of autonomous vehicle and so forth. That'll be a whole different beast. But as for now, they still going to be the main operator of those tractor trailers in terms of the transporting those agricultural goods. So there's still going to be some sort of a training process. It's not like, those farmers just load those products into the car and tractor trailer, and the tractor trailer will drive themselves. You see my point? That's what I'm saying.
Well, there's nothing saying that it can't happen, right? They already have Volvo, or we covered an article earlier this month where Volvo was actually utilizing autonomous tractor trailers to move hundreds of tons of material at a time, and it did it efficiently. It actually didn't mess up. So there's nothing saying that can't happen with another partner in mind. And that's where people like us come in, and we actually drive that sort of process.
That's the beauty of investing in this kind of technology, because if you try to integrate in a technology into an existing technology, a lot of times you face resistance, right? Like, for example, in the case of the United States, if you're trying to integrate all these autonomous tractor trailer into into these fleet management systems, so supply chain management system and so forth, you're going to face resistance from the truck driver. Whereas in the case of Africa, right, a lot of times they don't have those existing tractor trailer systems to begin with. So those companies, any ambitious entrepreneurs, any large company, they can come in, any large institution, they can come in and build on the complete brand new technology without have to face any resistance because there's no existing technology to begin with. So I think that's why it's become such an attractive target for IBMs because they don't have to deal with in other words, the whole personnel, the whole anti-technology, not anti-technology. What would be good words? What do they call that? They have some fancy term for some technological transfer conflict. I don't know.
You mean the Luddites?
Well, yeah, Luddite is the example, but they have one specific sociological term for that. I forgot what name for that is. Oh my god, anti-something. Anyway, the point is that they don't have. So that's why those African countries become such an attractive target because they don't have any interest, like any entrenched interest that's already in present that will thwart the progress, not progress, the implementation of these novel technology. Right? You see my point? In other words, instead of having to destroy the old house and to build a new house, they could just build a new house from the beginning. Right? So that's why Africa presents such attractive locations because the fact that a lot of this technology, the existing technology, is not existing yet, so they can make the transition very smoothly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what I mean earlier, when I mentioned the transition, though, don't get conflicted with the early transition I mentioned about. It's the training process. Like I said, no matter what, those farmers do need to be. That's what I mentioned. It has to go through the transition of being training, not the transition of implementation, but the transition of training. That's what I mean. So I just make sure there's no conflict in that term.
Okay.
I was gonna ask you real quick, Mike. So what looking at this partnership, right, that this just created recently with IBM, what type of opportunities are there for you know for those in the Black community who wants to take advantage of this partnership, right? I know there's what other um, industry is going to kind of tie into this that can that other people can capitalize on.
Well, you're not necessarily finding a partnership with IBM, but you're finding a partnership with farmers, right? So, you're basically competing against IBM at a lower cost. IBM usually charges a lot of money because they're big blue. So you're coming up with your own data analytics system, as well as a weather system, right? This is where cube satellites come into place, where you can actually use cube satellites for this very purpose to determine a small geographical area to see whether or not there's going to be rain coming and whether or not they should plant now a day ahead before the rain comes, or whether or not it's going to be a drought, so they have to plan out a different method. All of that comes from people like ourselves going over and actually looking at that stuff. Utilizing drones with pesticides or even irrigation techniques that can actually spray a whole entire crop field in 1/4 of the time that it would for a human on a tractor, right? So you're looking at trying to integrate yourself in those areas.
Got it.
Yep. Let me go on to the next article. Okay, this one is from TRT World. South Korea tests new network in Mark City. South Korea is racing to set the global standard in 5G services, and that includes using the next generation telecommunications network to someday turn South Korea into a country dominated by driverless vehicles. So in the video, they showed that the Hyundai was actually able to make a U-turn in its car with this 5G connection, and you see all the LiDAR set up on there, and they even have ambulances and stuff. So but you need a mock city like this set up so that you can actually feed data into a autonomous vehicle because they work off of the more data that's fed to the autonomous vehicle, the better it works. So creating a mock city actually is very beneficial. In the United States, we don't really have things like this. We have to utilize old infrastructure, which is you need a permit for. You don't really have something set up like this. You gentlemen have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, it's pretty cool that they built a city strictly for testing this out.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, and consistently throughout the video, you've seen, I guess they categorize them as developers say, "Hey, yeah, this isn't ready, but we're still going to go ahead and get it out by 2019, by 2020." Consistently say that, they admit that it's not 100%, but then again, at the same token, you shouldn't really wait to something is 100% because when it is really 100%, you need to test it out. And they say, we still gonna push this thing out between 2019 and 2020. We trying to get it out there. And this, excuse me, my throat dry. This is they testing that out. They're having the machine learn it, get its bearings, if you will. This is pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Jack, you have anything on that? Scholar Chang?
How can I say this? Again, just another one of those glaring example between the America's lack of just I don't know. Again, I don't know what's going on. We have such an entrenched reluctance to embrace. We have a interest to embrace all this technology when it comes to useless things, right? Like for example, we have technology to embrace all these. We create all these new social media platform to create mass entertainment. But when it comes to something more solid and concrete, the small city concept, what the whole South Korea did was pretty much fall under the category of a small city, right? Small city, not small like the SMAL, smart city, right? I remember I went to this conference. I was presenting some of my research, 2 years ago. I went to this conference. I stopped at this university. I saw they have this. They just started this new program called the joint collaboration. You know how a lot of universities have joint collaboration with industries, right? First time I saw the university. I forgot the name of the university. I think oh my gosh, I forgot what they said the name of the university. They just started a new program called Small City. Basically, they're trying to encourage the collaboration between those entrepreneurs and the university research to see if the whole small city concept. And that is almost 2 years ago. Have you guys heard of any concept of small city nowadays in the popular media?
Yeah, Dubai is trying to do a smart city.
But no, I'm talking about I know not internationally, but domestically. Exactly. See, that's my point. You found all these...
yes. You
found one? You heard of one?
Me there, man.
Right, domestically. That's what I'm saying. Domestically. When's the last time you heard like, because I'm going to
Cook County, the county I'm in Chicago, is something with the blockchain, but not.
Yeah.
You know what? Not smart city. Not smart city.
Exactly. No, blockchain is no different than smart. So that's my point. Again, that's my point. Whereas in Asia, even that the YouTube video you showed, that wasn't written that was in Korean, right? Which means they probably broadcast it on the popular media on the frequently basis. In America, when's the last time you heard of any more small city concept being emerged? You have to be in the university setting what you even heard about this whole concept of small city, right? So again, this is such a damning condemnation of, like I say, this topsy-turvy national priority of America. We have all this urban development. I started to think there's some sort of concerted effort really to thwart the revitalization of all these urban development. Like for example, they mentioned about those the integration of the autonomous vehicle in terms of the 5G network. You just recently heard about 5G network, but guess what? I think 5G network has been existent in South Korea, even in South Korea in East Asia. I think almost, I would say, I forgot. I remember came across the article almost 5 years ago, right? 5G network.
No, it hasn't.
When they started developing.
No, it hasn't.
When they formulating was 5 years ago. I think 5 or 4 years ago.
There's been a draft. It's what we call a 5G draft was put in place.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure hasn't. It's only recently been put up.
Yeah. So again, but when's the last time we heard about 5G network is when we were in America, when we actually go to the cell phone store and they say, "Oh, you have the 5G network now for the cell phone." But have we ever thought about integrating that into the like I say, the public infrastructure? No, you haven't really barely heard anything about it, right? Well, so it's like, what's going on? Like, so what's going on? How can the most powerful nation in this world, how can we lack in terms of the infrastructure to redevelopment? Well, again, maybe, but who knows? Like I said, with all these potholes going on on all these roads, yeah, I don't think they're gonna have a small city. Shoot, you can pretty much forget about that. So yeah,
I like in the video how they made a demonstration of how one driver had, which is really, when I think about it, when I say it, it's but the driver of a smart car, autonomous vehicle, the autonomous vehicle sensed that the driver had, I don't know why it would be a driver, that he had a heart attack and drove the guy to the nearest ambulance. But this is in a smart city, and he didn't really have a heart attack, but still.
It's a makeshift event.
Huh?
Makeshift event.
Yeah. But that in itself is like, wow, you can do this with that. We need to look into this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you have a Fitbit and it's or even an Apple Watch for that matter, or a Google Watch that's connected with Google Fit, it's recording all that data. So if your heart rate shot through the roof or beyond nominal rates for an extended period of time, that can be set up to trigger a 911 call, an E911 dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then that 5G car or that vehicle would actually give them pinpoint data of GPS location where you are.
That in itself is pretty cool. That in itself was what, if I was a politician, I would say, hey, this, per my research, this needs to be applied somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Although nothing is though, we have to make sure, how cell phones sometimes, I don't care if you have 4G network or 4G LTE network, there's the problem of signaling disparity, right? Because how coverage disparity, some area has more coverage than the other. We just have to make sure while we're implementing this type of 5G network based transportation system, that the coverage are even distributed. Because remember, what will happen if what's going to happen? Then you create those coverage. I know this whole. Remember this concept of environmental segregation and so forth. Well, you're going to have the problem of the coverage segregation now. Some area has more coverage than the other. Therefore, it's more responsiveness of all these autonomous vehicles to transporting those patients in time, promptly, as opposed to a lack of coverage area where there's less individual being helped, being served. So there's also the problem. There's always going to be the problem of the disparity also. So yeah, that's why before they implement these, before you implement this, you have to make sure that the existing tower have to be built. Because I'm not sure what type of tower that we're going to build for the 5G network. I think I wonder is going to be similar to the 4G LTE network. It's probably going to, I guess it's the same type.
The reason why 5G is such a big concern is because it actually is accurate up to 12 inches on the ground. So if there's instead of the gaps, the aerial gaps that would be in place with 4G, like spotty coverage and stuff like that, you don't get that with 5G because it pinpoints it all the way down to a meter, which is 3 feet. So you don't really have all that worry in place. On top of the fact that you have Wi-Fi, right? So now you have 802.11ax out for xylophone. So what you have with 802.11ax, it's similar to 5G in performance and coverage, as long as the access points are set up correctly. So that's your last mile. So you'll have complete total coverage as long as you set up the infrastructure correctly.
Oh, that's perfect then. Because if I'm saying the 5G network, also ensure immediate, almost instant, right? That's the word they use, instant transferring of information and so forth. So that's gonna be very helpful when it comes to you mentioned about the patient, the personalized those wearable sensors, those wearable transponders that patients wear in order to monitor their health status, the physiological measurement and so forth, and how that transfers between the car and so forth. Yeah, I guess the instant transfer information process is gonna be facilitate that rescue process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me move on to the next video. All right, next one is from New China TV. China's first intelligent expressway to be completed 2022. How intelligent can an expressway be? Let's watch and find out. And if you're looking at the video, you'll see that the green connection is actually connected to a Wi-Fi network, which is what I was mentioning just a few seconds ago. So these are what they consider to be microcell access points, and they're allowing the vehicles to actually communicate directly to them. These vehicles are constantly broadcasting on a regular basis what their location is and how fast they're going, all types of statistics.
Yeah, what was surprising what it said in that article that it will cut driving between two cities that would take 2 hours. It will make it just one. That's that's uh that's amazing because you look at cities like New York City. I would think even Boston, um, like Miami, especially in California where you have massive amount of traffic jams, right? I think that will be really helpful. That would give people better quality of life, and also I think definitely could reduce accidents as well. Now, is this on like a 5G network or is it like this or is this something else?
It's a mix. It's a mixed network. So you will have 5G, but this is mostly Wi-Fi.
What type of technology is used in that? Like, type of is that more of like I know it has some form of communication, but is that more like lidar or like what type of software is this?
You mean okay? So the cars have their own Wi-Fi stack. So they already have Wi-Fi sensors on them.
So
they're basically IoT. They're IoT based. So.
Oh, okay, got it.
This is good stuff. This is part of infrastructure.
It's 100%
And,
infrastructure.
huh?
100% infrastructure.
Yeah. This is the stuff that we can't think of right now. Like when the internet first came out, you see on YouTube Brian Gumble having a conversation. Well, what is email? Why would you want to use email? At that point, nobody knew about Facebook. Well, 30 years from now, there's going to be a Facebook and a Twitter and something called Snapchat. No, this is something. This is something fathom right now. This this is excellent because in those irritating um clusters of backed up traffic during rush hour. Hey man, the road will speak to your car. Hey, you can take this road if you don't mind adding 5 minutes to your time. Okay, I'll do that. This is it right here.
Well, not just that, it's shifting all the traffic over based on the statistics that's being given out on a constant basis,
Mm,
right? So all your semi tractor trailer trucks move to the left, all your semi tractor trucks move to the right.
outstanding, outstanding.
This is what we were talking about Saturday on the micro transportation and fourth industrial revolution hangout. And what I was trying to explain to Preem is that this is infrastructure. This is what needs to be in place. This is exactly what needs to be in place. And they're talking about putting it out when 2022.
Oh, that's around the corner.
Yeah, it's around the corner. Jack Charles, you have anything you want to add to this? Scholar
So
Shank.
how do we like
Oh,
implement something like that here? Like how
You,
um
you, I don't foresee any of this happening right now here. You do have some areas that do have it. I know in Massachusetts, they most of the highways are already set up in a very similar fashion, but not with the vehicles. So the vehicles are still old, right? The vehicles don't have a way of communicating. But we do have we did get rid of the toll booths and have HOV lanes and new off ramps and on ramps set up and bridges set up. It's very similar to this. You do see the access points on the highway. What they're using for, I don't know. I think that belongs to the state itself. But along the highways, you do see solar panel grids all up and down the highway for miles. So it sounds to me like they've already applied the necessary pieces of infrastructure and processes. But the only thing that's lacking is your vehicles. Your vehicles really can't communicate, but they seem to be ready for autonomous vehicles.
so I can see why there's a big push because it's gonna help move things along forward. It'll make everybody's lives more efficient. But I guess these lobbyists are, kind of give them pushback, because again, it's gonna cut down on the oil industry.
Hmm. Well, not so much the oil industry, but more about who's going to be a part of the build process, right? Who's going to get the contracts?
So that's what the big hang up is right now.
I guess for most states, do they really want to spend the money on it, or do they want to spend the money on something else?
Hmm, that's what it's.
Whoever in this country, whoever has the smartest city will be the ones to rake in the most revenue. I think I sent an article out a couple weeks ago about Massachusetts being the number one state in this country for technology leadership and development.
So you think it's like do you think that so actually what you're saying is once is implemented 100% in Massachusetts, right? Then you think all the other cities gonna just follow along. So it's like kind of like
No,
you don't think so?
no, no. I mean, different states and different cities and municipalities have different revenues, right? So if you're Florida, you're more concerned about flooding than you are about creating a smart highway, right? You're more concerned about how to dump that water that's going to come into your city at some point. They're saying by 2050, Miami will be underwater. So you're more concerned about how to prevent something like that.
So it seems like to me that here in U.S. we're way behind the mark right now. We're sound like we're like in the back of the line
Well,
in this
that's
race.
right because you have a lot of bureaucracy in place. So I'm surprised Scholar Chang didn't have anything to say about this.
Oh, I was gonna say something. I'm just waiting for everybody to finish this. I don't want to interrupt.
All right, you go ahead.
Well, first of all, the efficiency, right? Western society is always in pride itself in terms of efficiency, right? That punctuality and so forth, time conservation, whatever, so forth, right? But yet, we willing to waste all this time in the damn traffic jam. Especially those of you who live in a major urban city and so forth. You guys always have the frustration of dealing with traffic jam, and that's like on a daily basis, right? But that's what I'm saying. But yet we are so reluctant to implement any of those technology, that's going to help to reduce that problem. One, they're always going to say, "Oh, we're just going to create new lanes, around the existing lane and so forth." But it still doesn't solve the problem because the fact that cars are driven by people, and people are fickles and so forth. Unless you have a technology to put the check and balances on these people's behavior and so forth, you're going to create traffic jam. Also, not to mention about all these efficient in construction that you guys always saw going on in all these when this urban city trying to develop and so forth, which also create traffic jam in a way. Why not just build a new small highway so that you can repair itself in a way that just by fixing the software that's integrated into it. Also, on top of that, by having all these fitting all these vehicles with small technology that's going to be in the core that's synchronized with a small highway, eliminate all that time wasted that you could have used to do something more constructive, and therefore help to eliminate all these wasted human times those human time, and to put some and then create, like I said, create more industrial efficiency. So that's why I just found it to be I'm just dismayed by the fact that this contradiction between the value that we pride the most, but yet our effort to be consistent with that value. One more thing I want to add on to that small highway system. Again, I just want to go back before the same concept, the repeating motif that I mentioned over and over again is quality control, right? Because, like I say, a lot of time in all this ambitious drive to build up all this infrastructure, China has to be very, very careful to monitor this quality control in order to avoid all this cutting the corners, all these wasted potential. Remember, you guys heard of the oldest ghost city? Have you guys heard of this ghost city phenomenon? Ghost city phenomenon, yeah, right. When China built all this new city, but no people, it was so expensive, and people can't afford to live in it. Same thing. You have to make sure that there will be enough vehicles be fitted with this kind of smart technology, so that it can be synchronized with this small highway, and therefore be actually put to actual use, as opposed to just put on some fancy show and then just let it sit without any, just let it sit and become a facade without any actual use. So that's what they trying to. That's what they really have to do that right now. Well, last thing I want to mention in terms of you guys, I think was it you, Jack, or oh yeah, Jack, you mentioned about reducing accidents. Well, I will add on to that. Besides the accident reduction, road rage reduction too, right? Think about this. Remember that in the video you mentioned about how car can avoid accidents. Remember that car avoidance of accidents?
Yes.
It's automatically, right?
Yes.
Well, there you go. You have a technology that allows you to avoid all these traffic, traffic accidents and so forth. Allows you to, so that the driver cannot blame each other anymore, right? They cannot say, "Oh, I caused the accident to you, and therefore I need to get back to you. That's why I see all these road rage incidents happen over and over again. Well, when you reduce accidents, it's also going to, when you reduce the road rage, you're going to reduce the accidents, and all this reduction of accidents, a collision avoidance, all these stuff can be eventually, when the technology is mature enough, I'm pretty sure they can eventually progress to the point of they can avoid collision totally. They can eliminate collision completely, because eventually the car will be like I said, when it becomes an autonomous vehicle, eventually with collision the collision accidents can be limited completely, which means that you will be able to also save a lot of human lives in the process. So not only is this economic saving components, there's also human capital saving also.
Right, and I think you see some of that now with Waze, right? So with Waze, it tells you when the police officer is ahead and things like that, right? And Google Maps tells you if there's an accident ahead, because it's collecting all this information, but it hasn't been implemented into the vehicle itself. So you have um, uh, um, aggregated devices collecting all this information, but they're not connected together. And disaggregation, that's actually the term. It's actually disaggregation of devices. So
yeah, because there's no concerted effort to integrate all these miscellaneous technology. You got Waze here, you got Google Map there, and you got what's the other one? GPS Stream Map there, and so forth. Radar speed, whatever, right? If they can integrate that all into one single concerted technology, that will streamline all these processes all complete, instead of having. And also one more thing though, even when you have Google Maps and the Waze or whatever, at the end of the day, it's still going to be operated by humans. And human have flaws. We wanted to eliminate the flaws. Human have all these flaws, those emotional tantrum, all these finicky aspects. It goes back to the road rage instance. If you take out human emotion aspect out of the highway safety, you can eliminate a lot of accidents right off the bat just by minimize that.
You guys are giving away $1 billion ideas right now.
Well, I think most of that's already been done, right? If you look at Tesla, we covered an article with Tesla where they created a Earth GPS, Earth-based GPS. Basically, it's using one Tesla car can use multiple other cars surrounding it to determine its position, as well as most of these new cars coming out have collision sensors on them, right? So it doesn't run into the next car. You see a square sort of piece or a round piece in terms of Mercedes, because they put the sensor inside the Mercedes emblem. If you notice that the emblem lights up on the new Mercedes, is because that's where the sensor is. I believe with Audis, they're right above the license plate near the rebar on the bumper of the car. So they're integrating. They have all these components, but it's just a matter of having a unified network. In the United States, every state has its own laws and bureaucracy, and not every state plays well with each other. So the closest thing that we have to a unified infrastructure would be like Easy Pass, New York, Massachusetts, Jersey, right? You can pass through there with the same transponder, and it actually works. Whereas in Florida, it doesn't actually work.
So when can you actually say, from your standpoint, that this will be implemented in the West? Like when do you think? Like next 20, 30 years, or?
Yeah, probably about 20, 30 years.
Man, all right.
Yeah, China has it easy. China has it easy because it's building up its infrastructure from the ground up. So it thinks from the ground up, and it thinks long term. Whereas the United States, the infrastructure was built back in the 1940s and 50s, and they spent most, United States spent most of their money on the military industrial complex. So nice F-35, but your bridges are falling apart.
Exactly, yeah. And also all this F-35 are overpriced. I might give you guys an example before how the Pentagon was charged for $5,000 for a damn golden toilet seat and so forth. All this waste staggering. We're talking about staggering millions of dollars of waste. But now we don't. But yet somehow we don't say anything about it. We don't object to any. We don't object to those wasteful spending and so forth. So, but anyway, that's more on the politics aspect. And also in terms of the integration, I think was a Mike you mentioned about what did you say earlier? You said something very important. Oh yeah, Easy Pass in Jersey, in terms of Jersey and
New York,
New York, these different states.
Philly, yeah.
Exactly, that's so true. That is so true. Unless you can get all the 50 states come to the table and form some sort of uniform agreements on how to implement all these smart highway system, you're gonna have a trouble, because one car, I say, what if one car traveling through states, be able to travel, blazing speed in one state, but then got stalled in another state because it has no existing technology to support it. So yeah, that's where the political aspect is going to come in. Is how you can work out this type of federal state relationship, when it comes to implementation systems. Whereas in China, like I said, there's no such problem because, like I say, it's centralized. So yeah, it's again, by no means I'm supporting centralized state, but I'm just saying. But when it comes to certain infrastructure effort, it takes a collective effort. It's not individual effort. It was more of a collective effort in this aspect.
I didn't think there could be so much of a pushback from bureaucracy in terms of technology. It's like we're kind of limiting ourselves. Limiting. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's the way the United States has always been. The only reason you have a highway system is because of Eisenhower. Because of what he saw in the Autobahn, what the Germans did with the Autobahn in Europe. He was impressed by that. That the Germans were able to create such a system. The Germans were years and years ahead of the United States as a country. They had better foresight, and now the Russians are years and years ahead of the United States in terms of public transportation. Look at their train and bus system. It's impeccable. It's way beyond anything that the United States can even offer.
Yeah. Oh, another thing, Mike, to add on to that. Oh, that was so true. Eisenhower aspect. Speaking of German being superior, let's be honest here. Nazi German would have defeated the Allies. Let's be honest here. Nazi German had they not only their infrastructure was built intact, they had the first. Do you guys know the whole super technology of Nazi Germany and so forth? They have, the first UFO was invented by Nazi Germany. Supposed the long handgun, railgun was invented by Nazi Germany. The first computer-based radar system was in Nazi Germany. So yeah, so World War II really changed how the United States view itself relative to the rest of the world because, Germany. That's why Germany was able to conquer the Poland and France, with the Blitzkrieg. I forgot the name of that. Blitzkrieg, the German word Blitzkrieg. The warfare system because they have all these highway systems that allow those tanks to move rapidly.
Oh, Blitzkrieg.
The Blitzkrieg, yeah, Blitzkrieg, yeah.
Blitzkrieg.
So yeah, and also on top of that, you mentioned about the what did you say also after Eisenhower? You said something about what did you say after Eisenhower? Mike, do you
you mean Russia? Russia has a public transportation system that makes the United States look like trash.
Yeah. Okay, to add on to that, remember the only reason the highway system was also was being able to build is because, like I said, America was in the Cold War, so America's hands was being forced at the time. Not only it was being forced to build develop all these public highways and so forth, it was forced to build all this space technology, right? Because that's why, the USSR was the first one leading, was really throwing United States behind in terms of the space technology and so forth. And so the United States was really forced, throughout the 1950s and until 1990s, the United States was being forced to do a lot of this. Again, just to add to something irrelevant, that's another reason the civil rights also was being implemented too, because like I said, the United States was being forced in the Cold War. But again, that's the more political aspect. And after 1990, with the collapse of the USSR, now the United States become complacent again, right? We have to be complacent again. So unless the country is being forced, being pressurized, being pressured into really redevelop its domestic, resolving the domestic problem, you're gonna face a bureaucratic resistance. And it's not just a small bureaucratic resistance; it's entrenched. We talk about deep state type of bureaucratic resistance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next article. This one is from CGTN. China's Chang 4 probe changes orbit to prepare for moon landing. The first time anybody outside of the United States, quote unquote, has quote unquote landed on the moon. So
Don't go there, Mike.
let me read the description. China's Chang 4 lunar probe entered a planned orbit on Sunday to prepare for the first ever soft landing on the far side of the moon. The China National Space Administration (CNSA) announced the probe has entered an elliptical lunar orbit with the Moon at about 15 kilometers and Apple Moon at about 100 kilometers, said CNSA. The control center will choose a proper time to land the probe on the far side of the moon.
As I'm trying to figure out the far side of the moon.
The side that the United States supposedly didn't get to.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what? Just make it clear. What are trying to? What type of research are they trying to gather? Like, what type of information they're trying to gather? Just as far as like water or composition, soil composition. I'm confused. Like, what are they really looking for?
There's quite a few things that is rumored to be over there. Obviously they're not going to tell you what they know, but no one has been over there, so there could be some other material over there that China could use for actually for a base.
Isn't China and Russia having like a joint um, project as far as landing a person on the moon or building a base on the moon?
Yeah, building a base.
Okay. Well, I think this is good for the uh, people in China that they're doing this. This is real. It's pretty huge because to have it orbit and then land, have it orbit the moon and then land. Hopefully everything works out, and then. But this is it's pretty huge.
It's massive. This is massive. The United States media isn't talking about this at all. They're not talking about
Yeah,
this.
I haven't
This
seen
is
anything
big
on this.
embarrassment. Big embarrassment to the United States. China Chang. Scholar Chang, my SME.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to add an interesting fact. The name Chang'er was in Chinese translated into a Chang'er. Chang'er is this mythical, supposedly a mythical creature, not a human being, fairy, almost like a fairy that exists on the moon. It's a feminine figure, right? How reminds me of it's almost like what would be a good analogy in the Western technology, Western mythology, like a god, almost like some sort of mythical figures that exist on the moon. That every time, that's why they celebrate Lunar New Year, by Lunar Festival. Remember in China celebrate Lunar Festival? It's precisely because that it's supposedly every Lunar Festival she's gonna come back to the Earth, and then because there's a whole romantic story behind it, but I'm gonna spare you guys all the details. So that's why they named the satellite Chang'er. Okay, so that's just one aspect. Now, Jack was asking about what the goal of this orbit is. Really, this is a form of, like I said, a preparation for moon landing. Remember, moon landing right now. The United States has been always mentioned about NASA mentioned about they want to go back to the moon, go back to the moon, go back to the moon. Has not been accomplished yet, right? I think what trying to do right now is they want to use this as another build-up source of national pride in order to prepare for moon landing. That's why they choose the far side deliberately, because they say that, okay, well, USA has already landed on this side of the moon. We're gonna go even further. Okay.
You know what?
You know,
I'm going to cut you off, Scholar.
What?
What?
Go right ahead.
You know what? My thing is, if you was already up there, why didn't you just go 2 clicks north and just say, we don't see nothing, Houston. It's just dust over here.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if 2 clicks is what it's like on the moon, right? So what how much time it would take, with the lack of gravity and things like that, if they were actually there, right?
Well, again, this whole conspiracy behind it. Supposedly, right, when Louis Armstrong, when he landed on the moon, he saw the lunar base already. He felt he was being followed by some extraterrestrial beings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's the whole conspiracy behind that. So that's why the United States didn't venture too far. It's because the fact that they made some staggering observation. Also supposedly when he landed on the moon, when he operated what's the name of that vehicle, what's the scientific name for that vehicle they drive around and stuff. Anyway, when he was driving around, he was being followed also by some sort of like I say, intelligent beings around and so forth. So, but not all this information being censored. Apparently, they're all being censored and classified. So that's that's another reason they didn't go to the far side, is because precisely that. They say moon, or if you want to go even deeper in terms of the conspiracy behind it, they say moon itself is artificial structure. The entire moon is not a planet. It's really a giant space, alien space. They just rolling around because they want to attract the Earth beings to go to their moons. Who knows? Like I say, there's a whole lot of other conspiracy.
I heard it was made of cheese or something like that.
Yeah, I did too.
Is that true, Scholar Chang?
You say you made of what?
I heard it was made of cheese.
That's a little too far. That's a little too far. No, you say that it was hollow in the inside. They say it was hollow in the inside. So what's my point? My point is that that's why the United States didn't go farther, because there's a whole some suppressed information behind. Now, I'll be very interested to find out if China decide to go even further to the far moon, what they're gonna find out.
Big robots on the other side.
Who knows? Like I said, who knows? That's in this drive to find the national pride, they gotta be very careful, because not this time they're not gonna just contend with United States. They're gonna contend with some extraterrestrial being too. So,
Power Rangers, man.
You know what?
But I don't know, man. I don't know. I heard all these conspiracy theories regarding this, but I don't know, man. There's so many conspiracy theories regarding this.
Oh, remember I said all the planets can fit between the Earth and the Moon? All the planets can fit within the average distance of the Earth and the Moon. Between the Earth and that's what it is. Hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, it's the average distance.
Okay.
How long does it take to even reach the moon? Like what? Like this? That whole project takes like 2 weeks.
A mission?
Yeah.
They launched it on December 8th. If that makes any sense.
No, relative to other trips.
well, it takes for the Apollo mission, if I'm not mistaken, it takes them about 4 days, I think, 4 days or 5 days, wherever, to reach the moon. So you're probably going to take the satellite a little bit shorter than that. Oh, well, again, but that's only to reach the moon, though. If you're gonna roll around conducting all this experiment stuff, probably gonna take a little longer too. But remember, 3 days on the remember this operating a little slight different time scale because of relativity and so forth. So when they say the 3 day, I'm not sure 4 days and so forth. I'm not sure they 3 to 4 days. I'm not sure they referring to the respect the time scales on the atmosphere. We talk about on the outside the Earth, or we talk about respect to because some of the time scale is a little different too. Go ahead.
What if the other side of the moon is flat?
I want to get to the next article before we run out of time. All right. This article is from CoinTelegraph.com. Bank of America reveals new blockchain patent targeting cash handling. Bank of America wants to patent a system using blockchain technology to improve cash handling. A new application published December 25th confirms. Originally submitted in June 2017, the patent references banking systems controlled by data-bearing records. Aspects of the disclosure relate to deploying and configuring and utilizing cash handling devices to provide dynamic and adaptable operating functions, it abstracts reads. Bank of America explains there remain communication difficulties and aspects of cash handling duties across banks' huge operations, and such. It suggests blockchain could help ease these. Quote, cash handling devices may be used in operating centers in other locations to provide various functions such as facilitating cash withdrawals and deposits. The patent document continues. What do you guys think about this? I know you sent this in.
Yeah, it was a little confusing in the beginning. I had to read it once or twice. From what I think they're trying to say is they're going to use, let me get to it again. They're going to use their own blockchain patent. Ooh. Okay, their ATM machines, you input money to deposit and you take money out. They're going to use their own blockchain patent to quickly update their systems in your account somewhere. I read it twice, and that's about all. It's kind of obscure and abstract. Man, it's hot in here. Am I live?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all I can get from it. I know the article also said that Bank of America since 2016, I want to say, has been one of the leaders in blockchain patents, and people are saying they wonder if they're going to go ahead with a lot of their patents. But this one, the title sounded like, okay, this got to be good, but it sounded kind of abstract, and that's all. What I said is what I got from it.
All right, we'll move on to the next one then. All right, this next one is from TechWorld.com. 9 amazing examples of high-tech innovation in China. In June 2016, Chinese President Xi Jinping outlined his vision for China to become the leading player in science and technology globally. Speaking at a national congress of the China Association for Science and Technology, he said the country must be on course to being a leading innovator worldwide by 2030. According to a post on the Chinese Academy of Science website, Xi said, great scientific and technological capacity is a must for China to be strong and for people's lives to improve, adding that the country and even in humankind won't do without innovation, nor will it do if the innovations is carried out slowly. These are lofty words from the words emerging superpower, but there are some indications the country is already well on track. Here are just a few examples of technological innovation underway in China. Number one, super solar expressway that charges electric vehicles as they drive. Number two, floating solar power plant. Number three, Shenzhen East Waste to Energy Plant. Number four, transit elevated bus. Number five, quantum science satellite. Number six, 500-meter aperture spherical telescope. Seven, 3D printed houses. Eight, um, Tianyan 2, supercomputer. And number nine, customized server chips with Qualcomm. Scholar Chang, my Chinese SME, can you chime in on this since you sent this one in? Oh, Scholar Chang is gone. All right, well, Mino, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, nothing in depth. Just what's what I'm looking for? Impressive innovations and technologies that's going on in China right now. Uh, that's going on in China right now. But that's the extent of what I had to say.
All right. All right, this article is from the LATimes.com. Malware attack disrupts delivery of LA Times and Tribune papers across the U.S. What first arose as a server outage was identified Saturday as a malware attack, which appears to have originated from the outside of the United States and hobbled computer systems and delayed weekend deliveries of LA Times and other newspapers across the country. Technology teams worked feverishly to quarantine the computer virus, but it spread through the Tribune's publishing network and reinfected systems crucial to the news production and printing process. Multiple newspapers around the country were affected because they share a production platform. The attack delayed distribution of Saturday editions of the LA Times and San Diego Union Tribune. It also stymied distribution of the West Coast editions of Wall Street Journal and New York Times, which are printed at the LA Times Olympic printing plant in downtown Los Angeles. By Saturday afternoon, the company suspected the cyber attack originated from outside the United States, but officials said it was too soon to say whether it was carried out by a foreign state or some other entity, said a source with knowledge of the situation. Quote, we believe the intention of the attack was to disable infrastructure, more specifically servers, as opposed to looking to steal information, said the source. We spoke on the condition of the anonymity and anonymity because he was not authorized to comment publicly. The source would not detail what evidence led the company to believe the breach comes from overseas. The Tribune Publishing said in the statement Saturday that the personal data of our subscribers, online users, and advertising clients has not been compromised. We apologize for any inconvenience and thank our readers and advertising partners for their patience as we investigate the situation. Every market quote, every market across the company was impacted, said Marissa Colias, spokeswoman for Tribune Publishing. She declined to provide specifics on disruptions, but the company's properties include Chicago Tribune, Baltimore Sun, Capital Gazette, in Annapolis, Maryland, Hartford Courant, New York Daily News, South Florida Sun Sentinel, and Orlando Sentinel. No other details about the origin of the attack were immediately available, and the motive remained unclear. So, me being a resident cybersecurity person, I don't know what. I don't read these newspapers. I mean, we cover them sometimes on this Hangout, but I'm not a subscriber to them, so I don't know what kind of content they were publishing. So what it sounds like to me, maybe they published something, or they were going to publish something, and that caused a disruption. Lionel Jenkins.
So they were gonna. So you saying they may have? Okay, I was going to publish something that the attacker didn't want them to publish.
It could. Who attacked it is kind of irrelevant, right? But why they attacked it is really the question, right? So if you could figure out why it was attacked, then you could figure out who it was.
Okay. So like work backwards type of deal.
In forensic, you have to work backwards.
Okay. And it was the Times, the New York Times,
L.A. Times.
Okay.
Chicago Tribune.
It seems like since these publications are being to a sense that I'm equating, and I could be wrong in this, I'm equating that their security is not up to par. Or not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So this is a denial of service attack.
DDoS.
Or DDoS would be distributed denial of service attack. So it sounds like they hit a couple of servers used for production.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, the service attack also spread to other systems. Why it spread to other systems doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know all the details, and they're not telling all the details. But what it sounds like to me, they were going to print something maybe about what's going on in the White House, and maybe that causes disruption. When they say it came from overseas, that means nothing, right? I could be here in the United States, and I can pivot to Nigeria or Mexico, and I can hit you from there, right? So it doesn't really mean anything. Now, because they say it was from overseas, they can easily blame the Russians, or they could blame the Chinese. But in any event, when it comes from overseas, then that means that Homeland Security has to get involved, right? So you have to call DHS, and you have to fill out a whole process and things like that, and then the FBI gets involved and stuff like that. So
okay. Now, denial of service attack is when their server is spam. It's overloaded. Their server is overloaded by spam.
Overloaded by brute force.
By brute force, and therefore it doesn't make any sense how it spread to other servers. You're saying?
Well, maybe they knew the IPs of those other servers too.
Okay. Gotcha.
See, typically when you want to protect yourself and insulate yourself from an attack like this, you use what they call a CDN, Content Delivery Network. What a CDN does is it actually acts as a buffer against DOS attacks.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, typically a CDN will be something like Akamai. So if you look up Akamai, Akamai's whole entire job is to be a CDN and absorb those type of hits and protect companies trying to have maximum uptime. Something like the Chicago Tribune and the LA Times, I just find that interesting that they didn't have any of that set up, knowing that you were going to get hit with a cyber attack. If not now, then later on in the future, something like that was going to happen. Maybe they just didn't want to pay for it.
Mm. Gotcha.
Scholar Chain.
Yeah, Mike, you brought up very important point actually. Especially in this highly politically charged environment. They can easily blame on the external uh, forces, for this cyber attack, and then, like I say, and then shift the blame, right? You could, like I say, who knows, that cyber attack may emerge domestically in the concerted effort, right, in order to achieve certain political agenda. So in this case, I'm not exactly sure what the whole underlying goal is, but I'm pretty sure that they because remember elections, 2020 elections coming up, right? And that's why they keep drumming up all these Russians support for Donald Trump, and then all these accusations of how the Republican Party will collude with the Russians, and how now they now on the other end they're also saying the Democrat Party right now was also copying off the Democrat, the Russian techniques in order to manipulate the election results, so forth. So again, we don't know what the origin of the attack is, but again, but by the same token though, the public, like I said, is too vulnerable, right? The public is always going to be vulnerable. They're always going to trust what the mainstream media say. Of course, they're going to say, "Oh, Russia has supported Trump to become supported Trump to become the president." So it would just be more logical to think that, oh, the cyber attacks also came from Russia. But again, who knows? It might came from the deep state for all that, for all we know.
Well, you can hire cyber groups to carry out these sort of attacks. It doesn't take a whole lot. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated.
Exactly.
Doesn't have to be anything sophisticated. You can just hire a subcontractor that could actually do this for you. This is what we call red team. Paul Bryant in the chat says, "Is every nation on the earth vulnerable to cyber attacks? Is every nation on the same playing field with that?" So to answer your first question, is every nation on the earth vulnerable to cyber attacks? Yes. Is every nation on the same playing field with that? No. If that answers your question, Paul. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that cybersecurity is a $billion industry. It's an arms race. It's basically militarized as well as politicized. So now when you go to certain events, which is why I don't typically like going to certain technology and security events, because they always talk about the Chinese threat and the Russian threat to sell their products. So they're selling you fear in order to get you money, get your money from you. And what happens here is they buy all of these arms, all these software weapons and defensive technologies, but they don't have enough people to actually man them. I know some companies that have a $20 million budget per year for cybersecurity, but they still get hit, right? Whether it's TJX or it's Target or Equifax, most of your local hospitals are all vulnerable. Your oil and gas companies, they're all vulnerable because they use very antiquated infrastructure to keep up the electrical grid, and they're not protected. So a DOS attack will easily bring them down, even though they bought all these defensive technologies. It doesn't mean anything to an attacker. Can anybody hear me?
I heard some buzzing sound.
Yeah, I think that's complex design.
Yeah, that's so true, Mike. You brought some. You mentioned something very, very crucial. Is that all this security company really sell fear, right? And they love to blame, like I say, Chinese. Of course, that's the first word that come up. Chinese cyber attack this, Chinese cyber attack that, Chinese cyber attack this. They just keep on drumming this competition with China. and now with Russia, to a less extent, Russia cyber attack.
Mhm.
But we don't know, like, and also all these security company, like I said, they just itchy for all these security. With cybersecurity, they should be fall under the category of defense contractor, because we all know that when do a defense contractor perform the best in terms of its profit growth?
In terms of war.
Yeah, exactly. They want to. They just really want to push forward. That's what they really want. That's why this rhetoric, this hostile bellicose rhetoric, is dangerous. Because they really want to push the United States into another war. That's what they really want to say at the end of the day. That's why they use the word cyber warfare, right? Cyber warfare, non-conventional warfare, chemical biological warfare. It's just totally unacceptable.
Yeah, and you run into these issues where the conversation is actually very racist. It's racist to say that, the Chinese are attacking us. No, you don't know who's attacking you because you haven't done any forensics. You can't just say it's the Chinese. China is a country that has 1 billion people in it. So how do you know who did what? It's not your job to have a conversation in public saying this ethnicity is attacking me when you have no evidence. It's racist.
Mike, I'm so glad you brought this up too. Have you guys, Mike, when you read those Chinese newspaper, right? You notice that there's a very, very, very particular differentiation. Say the American United States. If you look at the original Chinese, they would differentiate the American people from American government. They would say the American government has done this, 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 as opposed to in the English newspaper, the Chinese this, Chinese that. They didn't differentiate between the government and the people. They didn't differentiate anything from the people. They just group everybody into one single entity. Whereas in Chinese newspaper, when they mention about America, they always say, they didn't mention about American people. They say American government, this American company. They'll be very specific about the specific individual, the specific entity that they're referring to.
It's very dangerous because what happens here is a lot of companies may be afraid to hire a Chinese person because of the stereotype that Chinese people are hacking us when they have no evidence of this. This is the same thing that African Americans go through, right? Women clutching their purses and, people having to pull out guns because they're afraid of what this black man may do to them. It's extremely racist, but, that's American culture, right? This sort of narcissism that says, I'm good because I have blue eyes and pale skin, and they couldn't possibly. We're victims, The Chinese are just hacking us, They steal all our technology. Trump goes on a tirade and he says, "Those damn Chinese, they've been ripping us off all these years." Like, how do you know that?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why that's why the racial aspect. That's what I'm saying. I could go on days after days, expressing this. But the biggest concern right now is, like I said, I just hope they don't repeat the same mistake during the World War II when they interning all these Japanese just because the war. We talk about Japanese American citizen, right? So that's the same type of fear that a lot of Asian Americans have, is that, when it comes to this kind of cyber warfare, wherever, we're gonna be classified as the same. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's all about identifying the actual threat as opposed to overgeneralizing. But media is not going to be like, even what's fun. What I found the most frustrating is the fact that even your so-called those so-called tolerant mainstream media like CNN, MSNBC, and so forth, when they report cyber attack, they're also repeating the same type of rhetoric as those. You would think that like Fox News, where they will use the same type of terminology. The Chinese. Those overgeneralizing, dismissive, and like I said, borderline racist classification to depict. They really think, they just in their mind, they think that we talk about 1.6 billion Chinese people just having all these technology skill, right? We all just carry this laptop around and hacking into every single American bank system. That's what it sounds like when it comes with all these alarmist media content. They don't. Yeah.
I was going to say last week they actually arrested 2 Chinese Americans who were accused allegedly of hacking, the United States government. So they're starting to round up Chinese people left and right. And same thing with the Huawei incident with the CFO. They're showing you how far they're willing to go with their racism.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's not one of those less desperate intent. Western society is falling behind technologically, but instead of looking introspectively, trying to solve this domestic problem, they're gonna externalize the threat, just like just like pre-World War One, pre-World War Two, right? Just blame everybody else but its own domestic problem. Blame everybody else, blame the Chinese now for stealing our jobs, blame the Chinese now for lack of technology development, blame Chinese for the lack of manufacturing bases. But who made those decisions? At the end of the day, really, who made those decisions?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The hollowing out of the American industrial bases. Who really made those decisions? Right? But yeah, they're not going to blame all this company. They're just going to blame on the Chinese, right? It's a convenient target. So that's why I fear the most. This kind of fear-mongering tendency, this kind of fear-mongering is a fertile soil for authoritarianism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think not that I think, but I know when they start to dehumanize certain ethnicities in the media, that means that something bigger is going to happen. So what they have to do is to dehumanize one group of people to justify any sort of action against them. So now you can say, oh, well, my company was, the LA Times was hacked and it was from overseas. Well, who was it? Well, it could have been the Chinese. It came from Southeast Asia. Right? I mean, so many countries in Southeast Asia, but the Philippines are really good at cyber warfare now, really good. So to say it was just China, the Philippines are really good now. The Vietnamese are really good now. South Korea is really good too. All of these countries in Southeast Asia are really good at cyber warfare too. So to say, well, it was maybe the Russians, maybe it was the Chinese, right? So and they can justify it by saying, well, in relation, to this incident, two Chinese hackers were arrested in the United States. So therefore, it must have been those guys because we arrested a couple of their guys, just a week or so ago, based on some trumped up charges, with no pun intended.
Yeah. So that.
Go ahead.
That's why. Have you noticed that? That's what I'm saying. You have also, if you look at the bigger picture, right? If you want to look at the big picture, let's be honest here, Mike. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that? That's why all this recent racial tension escalate. Whether it be in terms of the the police shooting in the black community, in terms of the war, the immigration debate, mm-hmm. right? Now you go to China, this externalizing threat. They're going after every single racial minority group right now. Let's be honest. They're going after every single racial minority group right now. Why? You remember that back in the days when there was also this alarmist group that kept saying that the Caucasian American population is going to become the minority by what, 2025? No, 2035, whatever. I'm wondering if some sort of less desperate attempt to stifling this kind of reverse this kind of trend. So I hope that's not the case. Like I said, I'm really hoping that's not the case. But who knows? Have you noticed that? That's what I'm saying. You got to look at the broader picture here. Is that they for the Asian they blame for the technological problem. For the black they blame the violence, and the Hispanic blame on the immigration. But again, who knows? Who knows what the whole ulterior motive is?
Right, and it sells weapons. That's what it does. It sells defensive technologies. Companies say, "Well, I got to protect myself. Those guys over there, I just have to protect myself from some imaginary person that they can't really pinpoint." So it sells. It's good for defensive sales in terms of McAfee and FireEye and CrowdStrike and the rest of these companies. But when it comes to because they can't sell guns to a company, right? You can't sell guns to like Bank of America, right? You have to scare them enough to go out there and buy more security and buy more and more and more. I used to work at a company that had so much cybersecurity and nobody knew how to use it. I mean, if it's cybersecurity with guns, you would think they had M4 rifles, they had they had ATGMs, anti-tank guided missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and nobody knew how to work them. And they didn't have enough money because they spent all their money on defensive technology. They didn't have enough money to actually spend on analysts and engineers to actually put them in place.
Yeah, it's total waste of human capital, I say. And, again, I'm not saying that. I'm not arguing with the fact that if the actual perpetrator were Chinese, then yeah, then we should go after those perpetrators. But at the end of the day, is that you cannot generalize. What I despise the most is to put opinion before facts, right? When it comes, especially when it comes to sensitive issue like the cybersecurity, which in the words is related to national security. Right? Because that's a very, very, very serious platform. You cannot use those sweeping generalization in order to achieve this kind of goal. So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you go back to the article says that they couldn't actually quote, or they couldn't actually state who the source was because they had to give it anonymity, right? So the validity of the comment is dubious at best.
Exactly. Yeah, I was completely, like I said, they were completely unsubstantiated by evidence. But we all know America has this love has a tendency to generalize, to formulate opinion before when all the facts comes in. So it's pretty unfortunate. This type of attitude is exactly what prevents, like I said, a lot of development of technology in America, is because this type of I won't use the word xenophobic, but also
xenophobic.
Yeah, xenophobic. That'd be more accurate. Xenophobic, exactly. Yeah, which is very accurate. Funny enough, it's accurate. Yeah, the xenophobic.
Now, when you walk around stores in New Jersey and whatnot, do they follow you around?
No, well, we don't. Well, we're not gonna get into that topic. This is, yeah, back into the whole race. Not yet. Again, not yet. You know what they say, right? You know what they say back in the famous quote that first they come for the Jews, but didn't do anything. Then they come for the what's that? The gay. What's that? Something else? Somebody else? They come for the Poles. They didn't do anything. Then they come for me and nobody else. But who knows? Like I said, who knows?
Hey, what's going on, Complex? Can you hear us?
Wait. There you go. Wait, you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Dude, I don't know what's going on with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to figure out this mic problem this whole time, so I don't really have anything to say here, other than peace to everyone on the panel, peace to the chat,
peace.
Happy New Year. Let's hope here's to a prosperous 2019.
All right. I think that's that was our open mic. I do want to say, thanks for everyone stopping by. C Boogie, Wacky World of I haven't spoken to you in years. Since the Soul and Black days, and everybody else who came to the hangout as well. Thank you, and thank you for helping us break 500 subscribers. And the first time we got a thumbs down, in one of our hangouts.
We just did. Yeah, we got one. What story was that one?
Oh, as soon as we started defending the Chinese, in terms of these cyber attacks and stuff like that, somebody came by and gave us a thumbs down. So
okay,
but I think we'll close it out for now. And we will see you next year. Have a good one and Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.